To ESO Daily. I am your host, Mystic Raven, and today we're going to be doing another tutorial and basically going over weapons, abilities, builders, and layering in this episode. So you're leveling up, you're slotting different abilities in and out. You're kind of getting a taste for what Elder Scrolls is, and especially for your class. And that's great, and it's everything's excellent. You're having fun. You might be getting some frustration. The main important thing to understand in Elder Scrolls, it's not set up like any other game. So in every other game, you have like magicka users using staffs, wands, and your melee classes using weapons. Elder Scrolls, there are a lot of options. So basically, I'm going to be getting into this. First off, I want to show you guys my weapon. Okay, so I'm a magicka Templar on this character, and I'm using a lightning staff. Now, the main thing I want to tell you guys right from the rip, there's two weapons that deal AOE damage on what we call weave, or doing an attack. Now, when you weave, and that's between your abilities, that's called weaving in and out, your lightning staff and the two-handed sword are the only two weapons that will do AOE damage on attacks. Okay, so if you're doing a light attack with the lightning staff, it'll only do a single target. If you do a heavy, it will actually fork and hit multiple mobs. Two-handed sword, you can swing, and it will do AOE damage. Those are the only two weapons, okay, right from the rip. If you use a frost staff or a fire staff, they only do single target damage on their weaves. And same thing with swords, maces, axes, and so on and so forth. Okay, so just kind of want to get that out there. And for a magicka user, a lot of magicka users have like two options for their back bar most of the time. So you can go like a Destro Resto. So if you wanted to go with a restoration staff, say if you wanted to go with destruction staff on one bar and you wanted to use a restoration staff on another, you can do that. Because the restoration staff is going to heal you as you weave with that weapon. So as you do a heavy attack, you're going to gain health from its passives. Also, a lot of magicka users will pick up swords, and I'm going to tell you why here. So when we go into dual wield, the main goal for a magicka user is to get they don't care about any of these passives. Well, melee would. So if you're a stamina build, you would care more about these passives, right? But magicka users don't. But they do care about twin blade and blunt. So they will, usually level up their swords just to be working on twin blade and blunt. Because when you take a look at the sword passive, it says each sword increases your damage by 1.5. Now when you level that up twice, you put both swords on, you get 5% increase. That doesn't matter if you're stamina or magicka, it applies to both. So a lot of the times, a lot of magicka users like to go with the dual swords, no matter what they're really doing, because if they go with class-based abilities, which most of the time are magicka, they can actually slot those and not use destruction staff or resto staff abilities. They can specifically stay to their class-based abilities and increase their damage significantly. So a lot of times you have that option on your back bar is to go with, if you're a magicka. Now if you're a stamina, you can go any combo with weapons. So you can go with bow dual wield. You can go bow two-hander. You can go two-hander dual. So there's a lot of options in this game as far as your layouts. So that's kind of a major thing. Also, what a lot of magicka users will do too is they will go sword and board, or one hand and shield. The reason being because they can infuse or use divine shield and get more max magicka by glyphing it with a magic rune. Now I will cover runes in another tutorial, but you can pick up a shield, put more of your base stat on that shield because it acts like apparel. So basically when I go into my gear, I actually do have a shield slot somewhere here. I think I do. all would be offhand anyways. So here's the deal. Like, see how it says it adds stamina? Okay. So you can put a shield on, add magicka, and it's going to increase your magicka. Okay? Right from the rip. And also, once again, a lot of people do not care about any of the passives if they're a magicka build and they're using a shield. They're just wanting that stat. But they will usually go with the extra defense, which is there's wrong ability here. That's probably why. Deflect bolts. So if they're a magicka build and they're going to use a shield, they'll actually slot magicka, and stamina can do this too. So I'm not going to say stamina can't. Stamina can actually do the same effect. They can go one hand sword and board and with DPS and slot more stamina. But the swords will give you more, but if you need more resource management, that's when it becomes a good option. Okay, so I'm gonna put that out there. But if they take shields, they will hit deflect bolts. Okay, so I'm gonna put that out there. So this is typically used for tanks, but you will see it from time to time on DPS, and that's normal, and you can do that. That's optional for you. Another thing you want to keep in mind is the traits. If your stamina you don't have, and we'll go into the passives here. Go to medium armor. Let's say you're wearing medium armor, right? You can get dexterity, increases weapon crit, when walker increases stamina recovery, improves sneak, reduces the cost while you're sneaking, and detection. Agility increases your weapon damage, and of course athletics will increase your movement speed and your roll percentage and bonus. So these are all really typical for medium armor, but the one thing you don't see is anything towards their penetration, right? So that's why a lot of stamina users will use sharpened for their traits. Okay, so that's a very important thing to remember, because when you're taking a look at your other passives and your class passives, you need to always look down and see if you're getting any additional towards your penetration. Now when I take a look inside the destruction staff, we actually get penetration here with penetrating magic. So this kind of acts like the sharpened. So it allows you to ignore 10% of the enemy's spell resistance, right? So if you wanted to, depending on how much penetration you need, and you guys can see my other video determining how much penetration you need, you can actually go ahead and opt for other traits. Like if you're going to use a lightning staff and you want to charge to apply a status effect, you can do that. You can go Nirnholm. You can go precise for increased crit percentage if you need it. So there are a lot of options when it comes to grabbing weapons. I don't want everybody to think you have to go ahead and everybody has to run sharpen. That's not the case, guys, because there are passives that you have to pay attention to, because you might be getting penetration through innate passives, and of course we don't see that in the character sheet. I hope the devs change that, but that is a very, very important thing you need to pay attention to, especially when you're building your character. Now, excuse me. So another thing I want to go ahead and get into are abilities. So as you can see, we have a front bar, right? And then we have a back bar. And we got that at level 15. And the main important thing when you're leveling up your skills is trying to get them to the place where you can morph the abilities, and I'm sure you guys have figured that out. And if you haven't, after you get 4 on the first, like say if I was going to go destruction touch, it'd be level 1. Once I hit up to level 4, then it would be available to morph. Once I morph that, I'll have 2 options to pick from to determine what I want to use. And that's where your decisions come into play, what's more beneficial for your build. So once again, you just want to go ahead and, play to your strengths. Now, in this setup, I kind of want to always try to keep 3 at least of one class, in my bar. So what I've done here, I want to go ahead and I want to keep the javelin, as you guys can see. And then, of course, in Dawn's Wrath, I have the Solar Flare. And then in Restoring Light, I have Remembrance. Even though I'm not going to use the ultimate, I'm going to slot it just for the simple fact that it's going to give me XP towards my my skills. Once those hit 50, I can grab more of the passive abilities, because at the end of the day, you want to unlock all those passives. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to completely always try to keep 3, but I also want to keep 2 my strength. So on my back bar here, so this is kind of what I put together for a single target. And of course I have rapid maneuvers just so I can get forward. Now, but I want to show you guys Solar Flare here for a minute. Now, as you scroll down and you look, it says also grant you Empower, increasing the damage of your next attack by 20%. That's what we refer to as a builder, right? So it's giving us a temporary buff that will increase our next damaging effect. So as you guys can see, I put Aurora Javelin in, which deals 4,238 without the builder. Now this will go up by 20% for casting Solar Flare. So that's a builder. That's what we call a builder. A buff is a longer, substantial application, usually lasting for a few seconds. So if you ever hear the phrase, what's your builders? That's what it is. That's an effect, it's an ability that causes an effect to trigger or increase your damage of your next cast ability. Okay, so that's what a builder is. Now when you take a look at my back bar, and as I was explaining, this is what I call my layer rotation, or my AOE rotation. It's very important to realize that in Elder Scrolls we have durated effects. So if you'll take a look at Unstable Core, it has a duration of 6.5. Now this will not trigger until that duration. So it's like a bomb, right? And it explodes, and it will explode after 6.5 seconds. So I want to cast that first. It has a durated effect, or a timed effect. It should be timed, not durated. Luminous Shards and an instant effect, but Unstable Wall is a tick effect that lasts for 6 seconds. So for every second, it's going to deal 1,496 damage to every enemy in the target area. I can lay down a durated amount of effects and then use a repeatable AOE effect that's spammable, and that's what we call layering your AOEs. It significantly increases your DPS output. So if you're only spamming, like say you're using you're a stamina and you're using dual wield and you're spamming Whirlwind or Steel Tornado, and that's the only AOE you have, you're significantly reducing your DPS output because you're only using an instant effect. You're not using any durated effects. So it's very important, guys, that you understand what layering is. Okay, and it really does help you out. So rule of thumb, when I get up there, and especially once I hit in my champion ranks, I usually keep 1 bar single target, and you can set up your layout how you want. So if you're using a destruction staff, for example, let's say a fire staff, and you're going single target mainly on the fire staff, you can use your back bar for your AOE durations and effects, and that works out great. I've always played that way, had nothing but success. So I always tell people that's kind of the rule of thumb. Now there are scenarios and cases where you're going to have to go ahead and make adjustments depending on how comfortable you are with your build. So once again, guys, just pay attention to that, and it'll be very beneficial. So I want to go ahead, get into this, and show you guys a couple of different combos we're going to set up and do. I'm hoping to get a couple of mobs here, show you how we layer. Sorry about that. I do have people who live in this house. Okay, so this is a single target. First thing I'm going to go ahead and do is cast. Now, as you guys can see, the base damage increased. Now, that's a crit. There's the standard, 4,449. Okay, that's without my Empower. So if I don't have an empowering effect, now it will increase by the distance. Okay? Once I cast this, it increases the DPS because we're getting that empowering effect. Okay, so I'm using a builder and then a follow-up for a single target. Okay, so that's pretty much how single targets roll. Now you can also use potions to gain builders or buffs, because if you're going to get empowered through a potion, it's going to last longer, so that's more considered a buff than a builder. You're not using an ability's effect to cause a chain reaction, so that's an option too. So here we go. Alright. I'm going to try to keep them all together. Now, as you guys can see, you'll see all these numbers start triggering. Also with, the puncturing sweeps. But mainly what you're trying to do is just keep layering. You'll see all these little numbers proc off. Okay, and that's what we call a layer effect. All right, it's going to significantly increase our damage. And the main thing, especially if you're going to solo, guys, you want to have some abilities that have sustained healing effects to it. So puncturing sweeps, for example, every time I'm using puncturing sweeps, it's healing me. It heals me 47% of the damage done every time it hits something. So the more mobs I'm actually hitting with puncturing sweeps, the more it's going to continuously keep me healed. So I'm going to get more healing effects hitting 5 targets versus hitting 1. So that's a very important thing when you're looking at how to set up your layer rotation. What's more beneficial, hitting 1 target with puncturing sweeps or hitting 5 targets? Should I be using it for mainly single target? And you can do that, okay? I'm not going to say you can't, but what's more beneficial for your build and your rotation? Okay, so once again, guys, this is how we set it up. The main thing is just keep putting in each class ability and keep leveling those up, especially to get your morphs, to unlock your passives, and play with your build. And understand that a builder, such as Solar Flare, will affect the next ability, Aurora Javelin, damage output. Also, layering AOEs, we want to use durated effects prior to a spammable, because once again, that's going to increase our damage output. So if you have any questions or comments, please post below. I do want to thank everybody for watching, and once again and always, have a nice day.